What's up, guys? It is. It's your Unk. I'm back. Let's see here. Well, for starters, they just released the Sonic Movie 4 teaser slash trailer. I want to call it a teaser because it doesn't really reveal anything that we already didn't know about the movie. And that's like never mind super fans or fans of Sonic, who are going to stay up to date on that stuff. They're going to stay up to date on every little thing, right? But even from like a casual fan's perspective, this trailer doesn't really show or reveal much. It's stuff we already knew. Sonic's in it, Tails, Knuckles, they're in it, Tom and Maddie, they're in it. Shadow's in it, Amy's in it, Metal Sonic's in it, which this is all stuff we knew. So I guess the only real quote unquote reveal per se is the fact that Dr. Robotnik might still be around. I'll get into that in a little bit. But Jim Carrey was revealed. He's in it. So that's cool. Because, let's just be honest. We owe a lot. Okay? We owe a lot to Jim Carrey. Because in my personal opinion, he carried the entire movie, the first Sonic movie, on his back. Because I'm going to be honest with you, and I don't think anybody would argue with me. The first movie is, without a doubt, the weakest of the movies. But the good thing is, unlike most movie franchises, the Sonic movies progressively have been getting better and better. And I don't know if anyone else has noticed this. They get better and better when they focus more and more on the game continuity. Because if you compare Sonic Movie 3 to all the other movies, that is the one that's it's not a one-to-one, but it is the closest to its source material than 2 or 1. So Jim Carrey carried movie 1 100%. If you don't think so, you're kind of lying to yourself. I'm sorry, you are. Imagine if they casted anybody else as Robotnik. That movie would not nearly be as good. I personally don't think so. And I get it. It's the first movie, how do I want to word that? It doesn't really need to be perfection, on day one. I think that's fair. Plus, if a movie were to come out and was universally claimed as the best, this is the best, let's just say video game movie for the sake of argument, that's kind of not good, because then I don't know if you guys can hear that motorcycle fella next to me. The reason why that would be good, but it would also be bad, because then the other sequels, which we knew we were getting, those are kind of like an inevitability. Those sequels wouldn't, if you've started with peak, where do you go from there? You know what I mean? That's really hard. I personally think that's why so many movies struggle with their sequels and stuff, because the first ones are already just so really good. Toy Story, Shrek, right? I guess those two are kind of exceptions, because I really need to get away from this motorcycle guy. Nothing against him. I think his motorcycle's cool. It's really, really loud. Shrek was really good, and Shrek 2 is arguably better, and the same thing goes for Toy Story. Toy Story 1, really, really good. Toy Story 2, arguably better. But that's, history shows that that's usually not the case. The sequels almost always are less than the first one. But anyway, before your own gets too derailed here. So the reason why I'm making this video is because I want to talk about like what I want to see for movie 4 personally. And I am a big Sonic nerd, Sonic head, whatever you want to call it. You know, I don't call myself Unk because I think it's funny or like branding purposes. I'm Unk because I'm damn near 40. You know, I actually played Sonic 1 on a Sega Genesis that I owned at home on a CRTV with a VCR built into it. Alright, like, I'm old. Some of you watching this or listening are probably like, what the heck is a VCR? Exactly. Google it. And I was very blessed to... So how about this? I'll just tell you the whole little story. So, like, my parents were heavily involved in church and stuff, and they were getting, like, for a lack of better words, they were getting, like, trained to also become pastors, ministers at some point. And so the pastor who was kind of, like, teaching them, like, taking them under his wing, he had a Sega Genesis and a Sega CD, which was the add-on for the Genesis, obviously, to play CD games. And so, like, they would come over to, you know, do training or whatever, or study. I don't know how you want to word it, but meanwhile, to keep me occupied, because, you know, I'm like 5 or 4 or whatever at the time. So to keep me occupied, they're just like, the pastor was just like, well, here, I got this. It's called Sega Genesis, and it's a game you play on the TV, you know. Like, that was, man, I think that was my very first exposure, like, hands-on exposure to video games. I had seen video games on, like, TV and stuff, and I had heard, like, other kids at church who had, like, a Super Nintendo or something, but that was probably the first time hands-on, just me with the game ever, any video game. Anywho, well, you know, they were training and studying under this guy and his wife for a while, to the point where the PlayStation hit the scene. And, like, the PlayStation was obviously the hot new-ish, you know, 64. No, the PlayStation came out before, like a whole year before the N64. Anyway, so he got that, and he got Crash Bandicoot, you know, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if he got it himself or if somebody got it for him, because that's a whole can of worms about, like, where do you get the money for that? Because that stuff, you know, what, the PlayStation was like $300, $200, which back in the 1990, 3 or 4, a lot of money. You know, adjust for inflation and all that jazz. But something really cool happened. He was like, well, I got this thing now, so I'm not going to be messing with this Sega anymore. Do you want it? Asking me. And I was like, heck yeah, I want it. I loved playing Sonic when I was over there. So he gave me the Genesis, all the games, 2 controllers, and of course the CD add-on. And one of the games that he did, in fact, have was Sonic CD, which, if you don't know, is pretty much what Sonic Movie 4 is going to be based off of. Like, to the point where they had a orchestral rendition of Sonic Boom, which is literally the song that plays during the opening, for those who don't know. So, I've been there. I have been there since Sonic's inception, since he came on the scene. I have been there since the beginning. And Sonic CD was one of the first games I played. And even back then, as a kid, I remember saying to myself, like, why does the CD game look like it just looked better? And for whatever reason, I enjoyed it more. You know, little did I know that we found out later that, like, Sonic CD is kind of like a pseudo sequel. It's almost like unironically like an alternative timeline where Sonic never met Tails and his adventuring kept continued. So what I want to see, I basically I said all that just to like, hey, like I know what I'm talking about. I've been around for a while. I read all the comic books. I used to own some of those comic books, the Archie ones. I'm up to date on the ID. That's not true. That's not true. I am mostly up to date on the IDW stuff. Not completely up to date on like the newest thing, but pretty close. And so basically I'm a diehard fan. I kind of know what I'm talking about, but also I'm a realistic fan at the same time. Like, I understand that these are movies and there are some elements of it that, irregardless of how we feel about it, they're probably not ever going to 100% go away or change. For example, like, the less human characters, the better, in my opinion, which is probably one of the many reasons why 3 is probably... I mean, 3 is better than all the others, probably because it sticks closer to the source material. But the other thing that it did is it cut down dramatically the time spent on the other human cast. Yes, there's still a scene where Maddie and Tom infiltrate the thing and blah, blah, blah. Uh-oh. Brady, what are we doing here? Seriously? This person did not want to stop. They're trying to run me off the road. Idiot drivers, baby. Gotta love them. Anyway. So that's one thing. That's my first hope, is that they cut down... they cut down on the... they cut down on even more of, like, the... you know, the human side characters and whatnot. I just don't think they're that necessary. That's all I'm saying. The other thing that I think we're probably going to see is, again, if you look back at... I'm just looking at patterns and things that make sense to me. If you look back at the other movies, like I said, each one progressively gets closer and closer to the source material. So if that pattern continues, we should see less of the human characters. Obviously, I just know that they can't... I'm sure there's somewhere in the script or with the execs, like, you know what I mean, like the higher ups. I'm pretty sure they have it somewhere where it's like, no, you have to have, you know, X amount of screen time for these certain characters. I'm almost certain there's some kind of clause like that somewhere, which is, it's understandable. It's fine. But hopefully they reduce that even less. Now, my guess, again, based on what I've seen, is that Amy is probably going to be from the future. And she's going to be there. Is it going to be the future? See, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure they're going to just do time travel shenanigans. Because when, you know, the Ark blew up, right, in the third movie, we've seen similar things like that in the game, like in Sonic Colors. A black hole erupted, right, and it consumed the amusement park that Robotnik was making. But instead of killing the dude and turning him into spaghetti, he ends up in, like, this weird dimension between time. And then he finds the time meter, and then he finds a way to control it, and then Sonic Generations happens, right? I'm willing to bet that they're going to pull from that part of it to explain why, obviously, Jim Carrey is back. I'm thinking he goes back and I don't want to say back in time. That doesn't make sense. I'm thinking he's going to go forward in time. And he's going to, or he ends up in like that space between time, right? The white space or whatever it's called, the void. And there he's going to have all the time in the world to come up with a new plan, and thus Metal Sonic is born. You know what I mean? Like, he's either gonna have the time to prep like Batman, or he's gonna be sent to the future, possibly another dimension. I personally hope they don't do that. Because if you look at the trailer, there's like a lot of like shattered glass imagery, and that's usually associated heavily with like dimension hopping or dimension breaking in like most media, right? So it could be another dimension. Or what they also could do is our world's Robotnik is actually dead, but like in another timeline, like they could do like the multi timeline type deal, or multiverse or whatever. Another Robotnik from another time finds out that the Chaos Emeralds can manipulate time, right? A la Chaos Control. And then that Robotnik found a way to defeat Sonic, and then use Sonic's bio data to make Metal Sonic or something like that, right? Either way, Amy is definitely from another timeline, more another dimension. I'm personally hoping it just sticks to time travel, but that's just me personally. I'm also thinking that, or rather, my hope is that this is going to set up for a, whatchamacallit, kind of like an in-universe, oh man, how do I want to word this? Okay, so like we had Avengers, right? We had the Captain America, we had the Hulk movie, the Iron Man movie, the Thor movie, right? Black Widow didn't get her movie until like at the end. It was just silly to me, still to this day. Anyway, basically you had all these movies that led up to this Avengers movie, right? We set up all the pieces, we introduced all the characters, right? I'm thinking that they're gonna do a very similar thing, just obviously they're all gonna be Sonic movies, but every movie we've had an introduction to a new mainline Sonic character, right? Sonic, Tails and Knuckles, Shadow. We now have Amy and Metal. At the end of the third movie, there was an army of Metal Sonics, right? Well, army's a bit of a stretch, but there was clearly more than one. So my guess and slash hope is that there is like one superior Metal Sonic, kind of like what they did in the Fleetway comic books. There was kind of like this one like all-powerful Metal Sonic, and he made copies of himself, and that was like his army, right? I'm hoping that they do that, and that the Robotnik or whatever from this other dimension is just a front. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually, we find out at the end after we defeat whoever, right? It turns out that it really wasn't some Dr. Robotnik from another time or from another dimension, but it was Neo Metal Sonic behind it all. And kind of like Thanos, right? Like, every movie will build him up So, like in this movie, let's just say he copies, that's how the movie ends. He copies Tails, he copies Knuckles' data, right? Because he's already got Sonic's, he is Sonic. And then he obviously copied the Doctor's already. So every movie, I know Shadow's going to be in this movie, but I'm kind of hoping that they don't. Like, if there is Neo Metal Sonic, right, that they don't have him copy that they don't have him copy his data right out of the gate. And then in the next movie, they'll introduce whatever other character. Are you picking up what I'm trying to say? So, like, every movie that they introduce a new character, we can now have Neo Metal Sonic in the background just literally biding his time. Like, copying this guy, copying that guy. Again, like Thanos. Like, first we saw Thanos, then we saw Thanos with the glove, then we saw Thanos. I can't remember, did Thanos already have one stone? Because that was the other thing, was introducing the stones and stuff, but that's something I definitely would love to see. Neo Metal just kind of being built up as this, super bad, if you will, right? The other thing I'm pretty sure we'll see, and honestly, I wouldn't even call it a hope at this point. I'm like almost certain. I'm willing to bet that we're going to see either Amy's going to have a flashback, or she's going to have like an exposition dump where she tells about the time that she's from, a la Future Trunks, right? I'm willing to bet we're going to see Silver. I do. Even if it's just for a brief moment, or at the end, he's built up as like the next thing. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, they could set it up for Silver for the next one. Because what they could do, because like in Trunks, right, in the Dragon Ball Z, he goes to the past, he helps them to beat Cell, the androids, blah, blah, blah. But when Trunks goes back, his timeline's not changed. The android still exists there, thus, multiverse theory, right? So, I'm thinking that it is all time travel based, but then at the end, we'll get the reveal that despite Amy being successful, Silver's future didn't change, right? And so then Silver gets it in his head that, because in Silver's future, we'll just say, for the sake of argument, it's overrun by Robotnik and Metal Sonic. Like, they are the dystopian leaders, right? So I think Silver will get it in his head that if Robotnik didn't ever get Sonic's data, or whatever it was that he needed, his life energy, his biodata, blah, 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 because he already has one of his quills, but, maybe he needs more than that to make metal. I think Silver, kind of like 06, he takes it upon himself, like, I literally just have to remove Sonic. I have to go back in time and just get rid of him before Robotnik gets a chance to copy him or do whatever. I think that'd be an interesting way to incorporate the 06 stuff. Man, now that I say that out loud, I really hope to God that, whatever movie it is that they start incorporating 06 stuff, I really hope to God that they don't have friggin' Elise and Sonic. No more, please. No more. Let that game die. Just let it go peacefully into the night. Anyway, that was just some of my thoughts and some things that I wanted to see. Let me know down below, like, what do you guys think's gonna happen? Like, are we gonna just, like, strictly stick to CD? I don't think we are, because then they're gonna have to figure out how to incorporate Little Planet and stuff, and I just don't think that's gonna fit for this universe. Do you think Neo Metal Sonic's gonna be revealed? Do you think Neo Metal Sonic's gonna be the main antagonist of this movie? Are they gonna blow their load early? I hope not, dude. I would love to see them build up Neo Metal as like a Thanos type villain. But anyway, that's all your Unks got for you today. Catch you next time.